So thank you everyone for joining this session, and thank you for having me at the Focus on Technology and Data Festival that is happening in King's College. I'll try to keep this short and interesting, and really feel free to jump in anytime. I have my own slides and agenda, but feel free to come up with questions in between and take it to the directions that you care about, and feel free to ask anything about data. We're going to talk about why big data is transforming every industry today, but really every industry today. The major shifts that are currently happening in data, including explaining what it means to collect data, and how these shifts impact the demand on data professionals, which you can also share your point of view and questions on this, and talk to me about these things also during the session and afterwards, as also as a CEO of a company that is working in this industry and also hiring in this industry. My name is Or Lenchner. I'm the CEO of Luminati Networks. I haven't started in the data industry. Was an online and a web entrepreneur for a few years before I realized that this is where the future lies, in data. So I've joined Luminati Networks when the company started almost 6 years ago. I'm leading the company in the past 2.5 years. I'm 34 years old, located in Israel, married with a little one. As you can see in the photo here, my hair is usually shorter, but unfortunately, now we're already a full month in the second lockdown, thanks to COVID-19. So currently I'm broadcasting this from home, and all of the company are working from home. Why are we talking about data? Let's start with an extreme example, with an aggressive example. Amazon's market cap, as this morning when I checked it right before this session, is $1.72 trillion. These guys know how to win. They know how to conquer a market and another one and another one. This July, just 3 months ago, during the big tech congressional hearing in the United States, we got a unique sneak peek into some of the practices that Amazon used back in 2013 to make sure that they dominate a specific market that they wanted to take over. I'm talking about the baby and child care industry. From these two emails that were revealed for the first time, I think, during the congressional hearing, we can see two things. The first one is that these top Amazon executives that are in the correspondence identified their #1 competitor in this field, which was a company called diapers.com, a website called diapers.com. The second thing is a decision that they made to win over this company. And the decision was, let's undercut their prices in every single transaction, even if we lose money on every single transaction and on every single product that we're selling, just to make sure that we're #1 in the market. And maybe then we can buy this major competitor. What they did in 2013 is exactly this, but to be able to compete on the prices, they had to see the prices of diapers.com every single minute in real time and from the eyes of their consumers. To do that, Amazon initiated a massive operation of crawlers and scrapers that constantly check the different prices of the different products on diapers.com and automatically reprice their own products on Amazon.moms, which was the competing product. Eventually, a few months later, Amazon indeed acquired diapers.com for a bargain price of almost $500 million. Now, yeah, the context of this is a congressional hearing under the context of antitrust claims, but Amazon weren't really able to compete if they never had this real-time publicly available data of those prices. And it's not easy to get, it's even a complex thing to do, and we'll cover it in the next slides. So there's an unprecedented shift to the online world in everything that is surrounding us, in every single thing that you just, in every piece of your life is shifting online. It's happening also with data. Today, the digital world is the biggest source for data, and it's just happening faster than ever. In 2020, in March, when COVID erupted and all the world went into a major lockdown, which is again an unprecedented thing to happen, what we saw that in the first 8 weeks of the lockdown, the e-commerce numbers went up, and we actually the world got to the numbers that we predicted to see in 2030. So the e-commerce world, and generally speaking, the online sphere, in only 8 weeks, in March and April, just expedited the whole process that we expected to see in 10 years. Now, this is not going to be reversed in any way. Even when the pandemic will be behind us, the data is already there, but also the population is there. So senior citizens that never really was online and no one expected them to be online are now online and loving it. Developing countries that were a bit lagging behind in adopting the technologies and going online and doing online transaction and all of these things are now there because they don't really have a choice, and it's not going to go back also. So it's not that once the pandemic will be behind us, we'll go back to the regular numbers of 2020. No, we're in 2030 right now in terms of the data that is out there on the web, especially on e-commerce also. You can see it also in the UK. Tremendous numbers. Online sales in the UK are expected to almost double predicted growth rates in 2020. And we're talking about almost 80 billion euros in 2020 in online spend only in the UK alone. Last year, it was just above $65 billion. This is a huge growth. How do we know all that, and why we're here talking to you, and why we're doing this cooperation with King's College and others? Luminati, we help our customers to see the web from the eyes of their consumers. We have around 10,000 companies using our services, including the biggest companies in the world, and we allow them to collect publicly available data from the web for competitive intelligence reasons and for any other decision-making process that they need to do, even in an automated way. They need the data, we get them the data. Because we're able to serve so many companies and give them that precious data, and we overview everything from above, we also have the ability to see the trends as they unfold, because data is everything today. We're 180 employees. Most of us are in Israel. Around 20% of us are scattered around the world. This is a fairly new industry, the data collection industry. So as you can see, there's still lots of room to innovate. Luminati alone has more than 750 approved patent claims, and we have a similar amount pending right now. Luminati was acquired around 3 years ago by a UK-based, a London-based actually, private equity firm called EMK Capital for $160 million. And we're growing in very high pace. So what is this data that constructs the web as we know it today? We divide it into two different types of data. We're talking about private data, which we in Luminati we're not working with private data, and we're talking about publicly available data, and this is what we'll talk about in this session. The private data is what's still creating a huge amount of data in the digital world. We're talking about 500 million tweets every day. Yeah, these tweets are public, but someone like myself or you is generating this information. We're talking about more than 300 billion daily emails that are being sent, and it's just growing every year and every day. We're talking about different elements around us that create more and more data, for example, smart cars and other smart and connected machines. So all of this is private information or private data that is being uploaded to the internet every single day. The other part of the data, what we call publicly available data, and this is something that is available for all of us to collect and to digest and to take decisions by is basically every single website that you'll find online. It's a news website, if it's an e-commerce website, every website that generates data and put it out there for the public, for their consumers or readers, it's a new data that wasn't there the day before, and now it's there. We're talking about massive amounts of data. Today, the digital world is being, the assumptions are that it's being constructed by 4.4 zettabytes. A zettabyte, just to understand the magnitude, is a number with 21 zeros after the number. So again, 4.4 zettabytes. This is massive. This is, this was the number in 2019, just a year ago. Today, we're talking about 44 zettabytes. So in just 1 year, there is 10 times more data online. Okay, in 2025, just 4 years from now, we're talking about around 220, 250 zettabytes that will be there. It's all data. Most of it is data that you can collect and get some insights from for your own business. Now, why is it a complex thing to collect this data? And I'm talking again about the publicly available data that is out there that you can see as a consumer, but it's actually a very complex thing to collect it as a business, as a company, as an entity that wants to collect this data in mass scale. Okay, so think about the physical world. When you're driving the highway and you see a billboard presenting some nice ad of a company, everyone that is sitting in the cars next to you and driving this highway see the same ad that advertised the same product with the same price for all of the viewers. It's easy to compete this way because if you're a competing company, you're just driving the same highway, picking up the phone, calling your marketing team and saying, I want a bigger ad in a better location, and also make sure that we're selling the same product 10% cheaper. Okay, so you can compete because everything is transparent. Obviously, the web is completely different. There isn't just one highway to drive in. There's an endless amount of highways to drive in. I'm driving one highway, you guys are driving, each and every one of you is driving his own personal highway. It also means that every one of us see different content. We have this own unique billboard that is targeted only for us, and we see different content depending from who we are, where we are, what's our browsing history, what our purchase history, what device we're using. So there's a massive segmentation going on, which is not necessarily a bad thing. When I go to buy something, I love it when I see the relevant products for me, or when I go into in my social network feed and I see a relevant ad. It's actually a good experience in a way. But how can you compete this way? As a company, you want to have all this data on your competitors, which is public for the consumers, but you just can't get it, or if you can get it, it's only one eyeball that is looking on it. It's only one point of view. This is the major problem, or this is the complexity that exists when you come to collect publicly available data on the web. This is the major complexity that we at Luminati are helping our customers to solve in two ways. The first one is that we're making sure that once you're trying to collect data in massive scale, you won't get blocked by that website that the data is being hosted there. Why you will get blocked? Because every website, or not every, but a growing amount of websites that holds this data, even though that it's public data, will try to keep it to themselves and to their consumers and hide it from their competitors. Okay, even if it's a price of a t-shirt that is out there for everyone to see. The second thing is this segmentation. So we also allow our customers not just to collect this data without being blocked, but also to collect it as if they are a user coming from everywhere around the globe. We have the ability to see that product from an eyes of an Israeli person using a Samsung device, or a UK lady that is using an iPhone, or someone from the US, and so on and so forth. So this is the problem that we as a company solve, but this problem exists for every entity that is currently trying to collect data online in mass scale, which is a bit of an absurd because the consumers can see everything, but you as a company need to work really hard to get that data. Let's talk about a few specific use cases just to make sure that it's clear what are the benefits of collecting such data. E-commerce. E-commerce is the easiest way to explain online data collection. It's also the biggest vertical or use case for us as a data collection company. And I'm sure that it's also the case, I mean, in the general industry. E-commerce is now booming more than ever, and this trend is just growing rapidly. When there's one e-commerce website that wants to compete with his other with other e-commerce websites, there are hundreds of parameters that these companies want to collect in real time. Why? Because think about yourself as a consumer trying to buy something online. I just bought this new Samsung S3 smartwatch a few weeks ago. As a regular consumer, I opened 5 or 6 different tabs in my browser and looked for this gadget that I wanted to buy in a few leading e-commerce websites that I usually buy from. Eventually, as a consumer, I picked the right website to buy from by the parameters that I care about. For me, it was the shipping date and the price, obviously. Why? Because I wanted it now. So I was able even to pay a bit more, but to get it in under 2 days. These are just 2 or 3 parameters that I check as a consumer, but everyone is checking something else. So the websites that are doing this competitive intelligence and data collection on their competitors, these companies need to collect hundreds of different parameters, including the reviews to understand the user sentiment, the product title, the keywords that you can look for to find this product to be able to compete better. The images, you need to make sure as a website that you always show the best images that will convert more users. And to be able to do that, you can't only rely on your own traffic, you also need to see what your competitors are doing. And tens of others of different parameters that you constantly need to check and monitor to make sure that you win every conversion that you can win. Maybe if by reducing for this user, the price in just 30 cents, you will get one more conversion. You won't be able to do that without this competitive intelligence. Similar, but a bit different is the online travel industry. It's similar because just like in e-commerce, it's all about checking your competitors and always adjust your own offering to the user. Okay, if we're talking about hotels, flights, car rentals, and so on, you need to make sure that you have the best price, that you have the best availability, that you have the best photos, that you have the complete data on this hotel. For example, if you don't know if there's a Wi-Fi in the room or not, and your competitor do know, me as a consumer, I prefer to book the hotel from the website that do know if the room has Wi-Fi or not. So this is why it's very similar to e-commerce. It's a bit different because during COVID, as we see, e-commerce just went up dramatically, unprecedented numbers, as we showed a few slides back. And travel, unfortunately, due to the limitation and restrictions, suffered a lot. What the data tells us, by the way, it's very interesting. We see that all of these online travel companies, or at least those who were smart enough to check the data and rely on it, shifted their focus, at least for this time, as it's still, the pandemic is still here, they shifted their focus to domestic travel. So they started to compete more and try to win every consumer on car rentals, for example, because you can rent a car and travel Europe, but it's still a bit more risky to go on a flight. We have around 20 additional use cases in the company, like security, finance, advertising, brand protection, and many, many other industries that are trying to win by collecting data with Luminati and other similar companies and vendors. So it's not only business and commercial companies that can utilize data to win. We have a few amazing examples of how just getting to the right data, which again is publicly available, but being able to collect it and to digest it in the right time can actually save lives. In March this year, when all of the world got into the first lockdown and no one really knew what's going on, we got an approach from a group of experts, a group of expert researchers from Israel, from a leading Israeli hospital, the leading Israeli Science Institute, and a group of people from AWS that helped them in the project. They came to Luminati with a theory. They had a direction, but they weren't able to get a quick decision without understanding if this theory is valid or not. We helped in just a matter of a few hours, maybe it was a day, not more than that, to collect the right publicly available information and direct them in the right direction, to the right solution. Basically, these guys told us, listen, we think that one of the ways to understand if someone has the virus or not is not just by measuring the fever, but also to try and measure the oxygen level in the blood. It's called saturation. They said that they don't know if there are enough people around the world that has the ability to check the blood saturation, the oxygen level in their blood independently. Like, I mean, everyone can measure fever to see if you have high fever or not. But can people check independently if they have low oxygen level in their blood? So what we've done is we've collected from different public resources all of the devices around the world that has a specific sensor called SpO2, which has the ability to measure oxygen level in the blood. After we got this data and we ran some analysis on it, we realized that 17% of the world population that own a smartphone, a smartwatch, or a smart wristband has this sensor in it and are able to measure independently their saturation. This was an easy, this was great news for the team of the expert researchers, because just in under one day, they were able to get a decision that, yes, we need to go in this direction. I'm happy to say that they actually went in this direction, and now this is being used to remote diagnostics of COVID-19 as part of different protocols in different countries. It was also nice to see, I won't take any credit for it, but it was nice to see that the new Apple Watch Series 6 is redesigned now with an SpO2 sensor incorporated in it. So more people will be able to do that. Think about a world that you don't have access to this very simple data. How many people in the world have this sensor? Without being able to gain this transparency over this specific query, maybe this group of researchers would take in a different direction, which wasn't that successful. This is how important data is, and generally speaking, transparency. This is why transparency is so important. We're also working with more than 20 leading academic institutes that they joined our programs, and we're happy to work and help them. Feel free to spread the word, and if you are working on your own project as part of your academic career, feel free to reach out. We'll be happy to help, pro bono, of course. So how do you build the global data collection network? We discussed about why you need this data and how it can help you win in every aspect, commercial, but also in academia. Now let's talk about the how. In the past 6 years, we've been building our infrastructure in two major ways. Basically, first, we got the understanding that to be able to see the real data that is out there, you need to be able to get to that website that is hosting the data as a real consumer. Just using your own laptop and trying to collect this data in mass scale, you'll get blocked. Using traditional proxy So just redirecting your traffic to that website or to that source of data from a third-party server or a data center or something like that, you'll get blocked, and it's not very efficient. So during the past 6 years, we've built our own infrastructure of what we call residential proxy network. And currently we have tens of millions of real device owners that are allowing us and our customers, vetted customers, to approach the data sources, those websites that you want to collect the data from, through their own personal devices. How is it working? So we were able to create a win-win situation always. The first method to acquire those individuals that allowing us to use their devices is by our own apps, in which you can download these apps and allow us to route traffic through your device. And in return, you will actually earn money. Okay, and then you can redeem it in the form of an Amazon gift card, for example. This is one way to allow to get access or to have device owners to opt in to the Luminati network and allow us to route traffic through their devices in a secure way. But the majority of these tens of millions of monthly device owners that are opting to the Luminati network is coming from partnerships that we've initiated with existing app developers and existing software developers. In this picture on the right side, you can see that if you just downloaded an app or a software that is utilizing the Luminati SDK, or a piece of code that is embedded in this application, you will get an offer to opt into the Luminati network. Of course, that by default, you're not opted in, and you can always opt out if you decided to opt in. Everything is fully transparent. It has to be this way. If you decided to opt into the Luminati network, we make sure to give you a very valuable benefit in that specific hosting application. For example, you'll be able to use that game or to use that app without seeing any annoying advertisements. So actually your user experience is getting better. Or if it's a paid software or paid app, you'll be able to get it for free if you choose to opt into the Luminati network. Or maybe you can get a premium feature for free. And we have a big amount of different incentives to give in partnership with the hosting application. So we were able to create a win-win-win situation. This is how we win. We get this device and IP that we can route the traffic from and collect this data as if we are the consumer. We've created a new monetization channel for the app developer, and we are in 100% of the cases, we're making sure that the most important part of this equation, the device owner, will get a very valuable benefit. And this is how we were able to build this massive network, and it's working great for us and for our customers, but also, and most important, for our device owners, those who opted into the Luminati network. Obviously, that we're taking and we're investing huge resources in making sure that the experience won't be damaged at all. I'm talking about the device owner experience, and it will be enhanced, and we will use the device only when it's not being used by the device owner and has sufficient battery and many other considerations that we're constantly taking to make sure that the device owner, which is the most important part of the equation, will be happy. Now, this is how we are working, and it's also important for anyone of you that is wanting to do his or her first steps in the industry to understand something from a higher level. Going into the data collection industry is very similar in a way, I mean, at least from the ethics perspective, to going into the cyber industry. First, you need to get a decision if you're taking the right efforts to do things for good, to be a white hat in the cyber world, or to be a black hat in the cyber world. So first you need to get a decision, and please get the right decision of doing things properly. You need to understand, it's just like being a fisherman and going to fish in the ocean. If you damage the ecosystem, it's the ocean, but in our case, it's the digital world. it will hurt you and it will hurt the whole industry. Okay, if you're a fisherman, you'll fish too much, too aggressively. Next season, you won't have any fish to catch. In our world, using this analogy, you'll hurt the data source. You won't be able to collect any more data from it. Not because the data is over and you don't have more data to collect, because the data source will try to block you even harder, and maybe you will even hurt the users of this data source, which is a big no-no. So a few rules to make sure you follow, and at least they're here at the top of your mind when you get into this industry. First one is you need to understand that you have to match the data collection scale with the website capabilities. If you're trying to collect publicly available data from a website that never expected to get so much traffic, you can actually crash the server, so slow the website down, which is a big damage for the website and also for his users, and eventually also for you, the entity that wants to collect data from this website. So you need to understand where you're approaching, what is the ratio that you're approaching, how much you try to collect, and make sure that you're always under the threshold that will damage and hurt the website. Second thing is always collect publicly available data. This data is out there for the consumers. It's completely fine to get this data that is out there, to create the transparency. Transparency is good, always transparency is good, it's a good thing. It creates competition, and competition it is always a good thing for the end consumer because the prices usually go down when there's competition. So transparency is amazing, but just make sure that you always collect what you are allowed to collect. Also, because there are no physical boundaries in the World Wide Web, you need to actually analyze what you're doing and where you're approaching and make sure that you're abiding the specific regulation of where that website or data source is being located, also where you are being located as a company. The good news is that everything is regulated, so you don't need to guess anything, but you need to pay attention. And maybe the last thing, but the most important thing, because it kind of covers everything when you come to this industry and wants to remain ethical, is just always make sure that you're automating real user behavior and not doing anything else. What I mean is that as long as you're acting like a real consumer, you're actually doing good, because to collect the data, you can also hire 10,000 people that will manually go to a data source and collect the data. It's not very effective. It can actually create more damage than good. So being effective is taking all these 10,000 people, employees, and merge them into a computer. This is great. This is effective, and you wrote a nice piece of code, and you're actually doing something good for the world, creating this transparency. Once you're starting to do practices that are not really mimicking real user behavior, you're getting into being a bad bot. So you can always ask yourself, is it something that a real user would do? If the answer is yes, great. If the answer is no, you shouldn't be doing it also. So, as we're here talking in King's College, and some of you probably considering if this is a direction that I want to take in my career and so on, we also decided to add this slide. I'm confident, personally, my own personal view is that the future really lies in data. Okay, I say that because as the CEO of a data collection company, I see what my customers, again, the biggest companies in the world, are doing with data. No argument that this is the future. Data, it seems to be the new oil. This is what people are saying. I'm saying that data is actually the new water. It's bigger than oil. You can also see it in the numbers. It's a fairly new industry, but the average yearly salary is even now is pretty nice, $200,000 a year in average. For a new industry, it shows really good signs that the demand is there. You can also see from the statistics that almost everyone with the right experience, of course, can find a job. Almost 100% of the candidates find jobs. It just shows on the demand. And more interesting data in this slide, but I can also tell from my own personal experience that even during COVID-19, in our own company in Luminati, we've hired data scientists. So the demand is there, and companies understand that to be able to win, they need to be data driven, and to be data driven, you actually need to be able to collect the data, analyze it, and then also automate it. So to sum this up, as I said, my career did not start with data. I realized that data is the future, and I shifted my career in this direction. I expect that impact to expand and multiply and create many opportunities. Big data is already something that everyone are talking about. It's there, but also we see more and more people starting to talk about the data collection processes and industry, which is even newer. Staying ethical is paramount in data collection. Trust me, we invest a lot in it. And the demand for data science skills has disrupted the industry. We see people shifting from being an engineer to be data scientists. It's interesting, it's new. You can really affect on the company that you're working on. You just need to come up with this amazing insight, and the company will actually get a decision based on your work, which is amazing. I'll be happy to answer any question that you might have now, but also afterwards. You can just unmute yourself right now if you have anything to ask, and feel free really to ask anything about anything. If no questions, you have my personal information, details. You can really feel free to approach me or anyone from Luminati anytime, even just to ask a question or to get advice. And again,
I have,
yeah.
Hello. Yeah, I have a question.
Sure.
Basically, we were talking about like using the data for the business and the companies, but and that most of the data they are open for the people. But I saw that Amazon, for example, the biggest online retailer on the world, they don't share their selling data to the sellers in their marketplace. So basically, they have like a big advantage, and they use that data that they collect to have a deep control of the market and win the competition against everyone, even the seller themselves, because they cannot get access to the data, and they cannot overpass this gap between them and Amazon. So, in your opinion, how we can like solve this kind of problem? How is it possible for a small business to find the data, not as Amazon, because Amazon is enormous, but like find the right data to keep going in the business and grow?
Sure. So great question, mostly because you're talking about the size of the company that wants to collect the data. Because if the data is public and is out there and you as a consumer can see it, you can collect it. No? Even if the website that is hosting the data is trying to stop you from collecting it in some different ways, technically speaking, you can collect it. So no matter what website it is, if it's an e-commerce giant or someone else, yes, they have their own data from their own traffic, which they don't have to expose. It's not publicly available data, but they obviously, I mean, it's only half of the story, right? There's also the public data around it. If the data is out there, you can collect it. If you're a small business, you can use companies like Luminati, but I'm not trying to sell here. But you can try us out, or any one of our competitors. Just make sure you're doing it ethically, obviously. You can start, okay? It's never too early to start collecting publicly available data. If you think it's too early, just remember that maybe as a small business, you're going to take some crucial decisions which are not based on data. This increases your chances to die as a business. And to be able to collect this data and get smarter decisions, yeah, you can just start collecting the data. I'll give you a specific example from Luminati. It doesn't have to be this way. You can contact Luminati and tell us, okay, I want to know this and this and that. This is the data that I want to collect. For example, you have a business for selling some online gadgets. I want to know the prices of all these products in these websites. I want to know it 3 times a day. And I want it in this format, and please put it in my AWS server. And I'll just, I'll take it from there with my data scientist. That's it. You don't need to be a tech expert. In old days, yeah, you had to be a tech expert. It's pretty similar to what's going on in the billing industry. So if you initiated an online e-commerce website like 10, 15 years ago, you had to go through hell to actually being able to execute one transaction. You had to call up Visa and Mastercard to fill endless forms. You had to be PCI compliant and to make sure that you have 128-bit encryption on the website. Who even knows about these things today? Today, you just integrate with one of the major billing vendors like Stripe.com or BlueSnape or SafeCharge, ADN, and others. This is where data is heading. We're there right now, but it's just growing and getting better and better. So in this example, even if you're a one-man company or just you and your partner started something and you want to make sure that you're getting the right decisions and obviously being competitive, just contact Luminati or someone else and ask for the data. You will get the data in the right time, parsed, validated, and then you can also get the right decisions. I hope that I answered your question.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you very much.
Hi, I have
Sure.
a question as well.
Sure,
So the whole thing now was about business, right? Do you think data is also going to play a bigger part in politics? And when yes, if yes, how?
That's a good one, because I mean, the answer is yes, just because, not because I know. I mean, usually, or at least what we see in the, I don't know, in the past decade, is that politicians are getting smarter and smarter in how to target their target audience in the right way. They're doing it by collecting data. Now, as I said before, we're not in the business of private data at all, but what I think is that for sure the answer is yes. And we have, for example, a few customers that are using Luminati to analyze and check how different parties in politics around the world are utilizing social networks and news websites and things like that to make sure that they will win in the next elections. So from our point of view, I mean, the answer is yes, but our point of view is a bit different. Our specific platform is being used mostly to research your question, actually. But from talking to our customers and these researchers or news journalists that are using us to try and uncover everything that is going on there, the answer is yes. I mean, you want to know, even if, I'm not talking about, you probably saw The Social Dilemma on Netflix, and this is why you're asking it. I'm not talking about this, okay? I'm talking about even legitimate parties, political parties that just want to understand the user sentiment, right? Yeah, you can run a survey and call people like in old days. They're still doing it, but it will probably be way more accurate, and you understand the voters' sentiments better if you'll just collect the publicly available data from, for example, social networks or news websites and talkbacks and forums and things like that. And we see it happening.